All right, welcome back to the sports show here. We're actually covering Red Sox. Well, we're watching the Red Sox live right now on TV on Nesson, and it's also playing on the airwaves of WBSM. If you want to, obviously you're tuning into here if you don't want to hear some Red Sox exhibition baseball. They're taking on the Yankees right now, currently tied 1-1. It looks like we've had Xander Bogaerts score on a Brock Holt RBI. We don't know if that's counted for the RBI, but also who scored for the Yankees? I didn't catch that on the radio on the way in.
Score for the Yankees to start was Hicks had a solo home run, and I think the Yankees just took a 2-1 lead with an Austin Romine base hit. So
it looks like it. It looks like Pomerantz got pulled early yesterday. Who started the game today? I couldn't even because I was on the air with Jose Matos before when it started. So
Brian Johnson started today. Obviously, he's an interesting character for the Red Sox right now, coming off of 2-0 season last year. He had like 5 starts, I think, at the major league level. Had some decent numbers. He's in play for that 5th starter role. So he pitched. He had 2 innings. I think he went unscathed. The home run from Hicks came off of Kelly, who came in right after him. But yeah, when you're looking at the starting pitching, Brian Johnson pitching well is going to help him try to get that 5th starter role. And what even might help him more is this potential Pomerantz injury. Who knows what that is? He's had injury history in the past. Of course, they said it was nothing major, more of a precautionary
as recent
step,
as last year, he's had injuries.
Yeah, he's been his entire career has really been plagued by it, all the way back to when he was with Oakland.
It's funny because someone left a Standard Times newspaper in here from Friday. It was Friday's edition, and the headline from Providence Journal's Brian McPherson says Pomerantz has answered all the doubters. Might be a little too soon now because he's Because I don't know if he's alluding to injury or not. I haven't had a chance to dive into the column here, but
maybe he answered all the doubters by saying, "Yes, I do get injured all the time. That's one of my problems."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I proved you right. So, so obviously the Red Sox taking on the Yankees now. It's still an early exhibition matchup, obviously. So it's not really going to be anything that's too telling for what the season's going to be. It's still a good preview. See what the team's getting out there. But this is more for the people that more for the guys trying to make a living as a professional baseball player.
Yeah, you still see a lot of the guys that are fringe roster guys or just minor leaguers getting at bats in this game. You're still very early on in preseason, so don't read into it too much. Of course, it's always going to be ratings and popular when the Yankees and the Red Sox get together, no matter whether it's scrubs out there or the starting guys. So it's fun. It's fun as a fan to watch. But yeah, don't read too much into it at this point. I was actually watching a replay of a game earlier today on MLB Network, and it was a great point made by one of the announcers. It's not a matter of winning and losing in spring training. It's if you play well and if you just get your job done.
I disagree. I think it's if you play terrible.
If you play terrible, yeah.
I think it's the most. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
That could hurt as well, too, though.
But so obviously a lot of not a lot, honest. There's not really a lot going on right now, so it's kind of hard to really generate a lot of talk about what the actual teams are doing on the field. But interesting off-field things have happened over the past week since we last spoke. And obviously last week we had a good time with Devin Clements from CLNS. We thank him again for coming on. But one thing we missed was the developments between old pal David Price, who's very
insert foot in mouth.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what he's been doing these last 3 years. And I'm sorry, he's just a petulant baby. I mean, So let me just set this table for you here. So when David Price at a press conference beginning of spring training, it was about a week or two ago. Reporters were asking him, "Have you talked to JD Martinez yet?" That was still when the final days of the negotiations for Martinez were going on. And I forget who the reporter was who asked him, but he said, "Have you talked to JD Martinez?" And David Price gave an answer typical of David Price since he's been in a Red Sox uniform, which is kind of snarky and defensive, and it's from a question. It's based off a question that was pretty lax. If you talk to JD Martinez, yeah, I talked to him. I told him he's going to get booed. And that's what Price said. He said Price claims he told JD Martinez that he was going to get booed, expect to get booed a lot, and be miserable in Boston.
And isn't that just? I mean, like you said, isn't that just kind of a microcosm of what David Price has become now? Like,
well, right.
All he had to say was, "Yeah, I told him hey, it's great that you're coming aboard."
We don't want you to lie
because
that's the difference, I think. Because I don't want him to lie and say the hunky-dory thing, because that's what you get the Patriots. Has anybody ever watched more than 30 seconds of a Patriots interview? No, because they say the exact same thing over and over again. But anyway, so that happened. Price claims he tells JD Martinez that it's going to be a terrible experience in Boston. Then comes to Monday, and there's a lot of sports radio outlets down covering various team spring training. Obviously, WEI is the flagship of Red Sox radio in Boston. We stream we simulcast EEI on WBSM's airwaves to play all the Red Sox games for you guys. Now, EEI's morning show was down there, Kirk and Callahan show, and they had JD Martinez on the air, and they asked him directly about that. They asked him, did David Price contact you? Yeah, he contacted me. Well, did he say that you're going to have a miserable time in Boston? No, that never happened. Look it up. It's on the internet. He literally said that he never told me that. And he doesn't expect, I think he even wanted to say he doesn't expect to have a bad time in Boston. So it kind of just brings back, is this going to be another year of this crap from David Price, where I don't care about how he does. There's some, from a fan standpoint, I hope he goes out, even from an analyst standpoint, I hope he goes out and does great. I hope he goes out and his lights out, helps the Red Sox win. I don't want to see him in a uniform next year.
He's just done himself zero favors. And I understand where you're coming from, from a media perspective of like, yeah, you don't always want the guys just to say the cookie cutter or, boring response of like, yeah, I told him, welcome aboard and, hopefully we'll have a good season. But sometimes it's just like you add such unnecessary press and unnecessary beef. When you're a guy in Price's position who's coming off of an injury-plagued season, who's coming off of a season before that was viewed by many or most as an unsuccessful season, what would be, if someone asks you, did you tell David or did you talk to JD Martinez about being booed? Then okay, answer the question. But if someone says, hey, have you called JD Martinez to welcome him to the team? Why is the first thing? Yeah, I told him he's going to get booed. And why? What kind of sociopath are you to have that run by your mind?
He's just a selfish. He's proved since he's been here he can't take criticism. Anytime anybody criticizes him on his game, anytime anybody criticizes him on his off-field behavior, that he gets upset about it. He whines and complains, and it's me against the world. It's David Price, poor me. It's the only one that's happened to him. And even before he came to Boston, when he was still in the Rays, he even trashed Boston. He said he hates all the Boston fans before he even came to this market when he was in the Rays.
You badmouth Poppy, who's like God to most Red Sox fans.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like whatever. But for him, it's just every single instance of adversity, whether it's just been a minor little adversity with a media member trying to ask him a question, or whether it's been with him playing badly and, people, I'm sorry, David, analysts have a job of, especially the guys on the radio who are doing your games and are on national TV and regional TV, their job is to criticize the play. So, like last year with Dennis Eckersley, there's no one I don't know who can defend David Price.
But again, that wasn't even about David Price. He was talking about Eduardo Rodriguez.
But David Price made it about him. That's why because he was doing the whole thing of, hey, I'm sticking up for Eduardo Rodriguez and all these guys in here, even though really it's about me.
Yeah,
it's really about him, and it's about him. I think it was obviously he was frustrated during his injury last year. Everyone would be frustrated, but he just kept feeding into this crap, and he keeps going on Twitter. Now he doesn't go on Twitter. Now he's talking. Why does anybody care about when you go on Twitter or not, David? Like that's what he was talking about in the beginning of spring training. I don't even know if I can go on Twitter anymore. I used to like it. He has that sourpuss little voice. Like I want to slap him in the face. I really do. He sucks. He sucks. He's not belong. He doesn't belong in Boston. He doesn't. He's the same fit in Boston that Peyton Manning would be. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's all about him.
Well, he's never been anywhere else though. That's really anybody's ever come down on him, though, right? Like in Tampa Bay. Yeah, he was on some successful teams there, but even when they didn't win the World Series in 2008, when he was on that team, like people were more happy there that they even made the playoffs.
I have more fans than Tampa Bay has.
Yeah. So in some respects, he was kind of set up to fail from the beginning. I mean, he's been the prodigal son everywhere he's gone. When he was with Vanderbilt, he was the star there, and everybody loves baseball.
You just said he's been set up to fail from the beginning. I don't agree with that.
Well, with his mindset.
Okay,
in his own mind, I'll say. Because he's never faced adversity. Every time he stepped on a baseball field before he came to Boston, it was like David Price.
He's never overcame adversity either. He's never overcame anything. He has been
because he's not mentally.
He's been abysmal in the postseason, and every single time he does anything wrong, it's blame somebody else, deflect the blame. Here's a quote from David Price from February 11th, and this is when he started the whole. And this is where he started addressing last year for the first time for the season. Quote, I could have handled it better last year. Absolutely. But I didn't, and I moved on. I feel like I've always been one to lead with my actions, and I didn't do that very well last year. I know and understand that, and I look forward to getting back to and being that faucet and not being a drain. So whatever that means, he could have handled what last year? Because apparently he hasn't actually directly apologized to David Price. He hasn't directly Dennis Eckersley hasn't directly apologized to any of the fan base. Hasn't directly apologized to any of the media members. So he goes out and says something, half-heartedly. It's kind of, sorry, it's bullshit.
Yeah, some weird phrasing, faucets and drains and all that good stuff.
It's something
try
to
to clutter it up and
the last thing I'll say about this whole situation too is Dustin Pedroia. He's not really a good look either. Starting with last year in Baltimore, beginning of the season, with the whole incident with Adam Jones getting, and Pedroia getting pegged, and him looking at the dugout saying, "It's not me. It wasn't me. It was them." Terrible look.
Well, and so that raises a bigger question now. Two issues for the Red Sox coming into this season, right? One, their lack of a power bat. They fixed that by bringing in JD Martinez. The second issue is leadership. Who's the leader?
No one.
Who's the leader on this team? Because I think the easy answer is to say Pedroia, right? Because he's one of the longer tenured players.
I don't get the love affair with Pedroia. Everyone, I think it's more Red Sox PR based, but ever since little Petey came out and won the Rookie of the Year and MVP, which is good. He was good back then. He's sucked since 2011.
And he's been injured.
He's been injured. So when he's been on the field, it's been mediocre at best. He's a good fielder, but again, as I always say in the MLB, being a good fielder is just as useful as putting your pants on.
Sure.
It's what's expected. The MLB is about hitting and pitching, and with Dustin Pedroia, he hasn't been able to produce in hitting. At least, was he a top of the? He's always been top of the lineup. He can set. He can produce at certain aspects of the season like anybody else can. Any points of the season, you can point to his July numbers or something. Yeah. But overall, especially in the finish of seasons, he's not that good.
And the biggest issue, let alone maybe he hasn't been that good when he's been on the field. He hasn't been on the field, so you can't be good if you're not out there. That's the biggest issue with him. He's been so injury plagued.
And you also have rumors of him starting that, parading and egging on the situation with David Price last year, saying good job or whatever with David Price and Dennis Eckersley last year. I don't know. There's a sickness, there's an illness in that clubhouse where it's not like everyone's going to be, don't expect the team to be a 50-win team, but. I feel like when David Ortiz was there, or even more so when Terry Francona was there, besides that 2011 collapse, that team was tight-knit. They had they had a job to do. They knew what to do. Obviously, they had lapses with Manny Ramirez, but his ass was gone in 2008.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but looking on the other side of the diamond, I guess, I don't think the Yankees have any of those problems. I haven't paid attention to a lot of New York media, but I don't see the Yankees having those problems. The Orioles, I don't see Toronto having any of those problems. The Red Sox are a dramatic-based organization, and it starts from the top all the way down. Especially when, I'm sorry to say, especially when one of your owners owns a newspaper, you start to see some problems. Whether, obviously some of those reporters who've had fights with Red Sox players over the years have been Globe reporters, but not mostly. Not mostly at all. And if you really look at it, the Red Sox are using the Globe, and there's no proof, so I can't actually prove this and say it as fact, but my feeling is the Red Sox ownership, who also own the Globe, they kind of reach out and say, okay, we need to have these articles pumping us about, especially with all the racism claims last year.
I think that's 100% valid. And you are right. It's tough to make the direct correlation to it, but I think if you look at the Boston Globe, if you read the Boston Globe during the
Pravda?
Baseball season, you don't see a lot of negative things about the Red Sox. And there is a conflict of interest there. It's John Henry? Isn't his wife like the CEO of the Globe or something?
His wife is but it's still the Henry name
or something.
But in the end, it's John. John Henry is doing that. She's I think the top authoritative person in the building. But
so right there, you don't see the Yankees running their own newspaper.
Well, no,
or any other team.
And again, Yankees had different stages of that. With George Steinbrenner, it was, and I'm against this too. He controlled the. He controlled the players in the field, and to a degree,
meddling in.
Yeah, and obviously he got 26 rings out of it. But on the flip side, how many more could they have won if Steinbrenner just kept his ass out of there? Same thing with Kraft. I think Kraft had something to do with this whole Garoppolo thing, and look what happened. It all blew up. Let the football guys do football, the baseball guys do baseball, and with the Red Sox, they're the epitome. They're the example of just sticking their nose everywhere. I don't know how you can manage a team. As much as we bashed John Farrell last year, how do we not know that? Lucchino and Henry and Warner or whoever the hell is there now was just in the dugout or in his office every day telling him what to do.
Yeah,
it's kind of it's just frustrating when you see this team that could be a lot better, and now also and especially when they start getting to a pissing contest with the Patriots. You hear all these things how Red Sox ownership is upset and is trying to do other things, spending money differently, not away from baseball operations, but doing different things to try to make make the Red Sox more popular and more liked, and it's just not working. And I think they had a lot to do, honestly, with last year's Adam Jones racism incident. And obviously that's PR driven too. They have to, they have to act as an organization. It happened that complaint, whether it's true or not, happened in their ballpark. But they also kind of go over the top with it too. I think so. That's just my personal opinion. So, I mean, do you have any other thoughts at all? Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that from the ground up, there's issues, or from the top down, if you want to say that, there's issues with the Red Sox and leadership. And if you want to look at another reason, and I know it's early on, you got to watch the baseball be played out. They brought in Martinez, who's going to fix a lot of their issues. I think there's more issues. I think that you're 100% right when you say there's more issues off the field with them than there are with many other teams, and there's just a potential for things to go bad when you don't have the leadership, and when you have the leadership in the front office standpoint that don't always go about things the right way, or don't always allow the negative things to just kind of get out there and get over them.
All right. So getting back into the roster kind of situation here too, the Red Sox finally officially have JD Martinez. So there's a few things that linger for where he's going to play, where he's going to hit, all those things. So I'll start with the hitting. There's a blog from John Tomasi on WEI, from WEI for a couple of days ago. And again, we don't have anybody from WBSM covering Red Sox really. So besides you, but you're not up there. They don't pay you to be up there. So we got to pull these from Boston. And his headline says, Homer and Hanley, exactly what Red Sox need. Now, obviously, I think the team that has the least amount of home runs or power hitting in the league last year, they could do anything. I mean, I think if Cora can get to the plate and hit home runs, he would do it.
Sure.
So that's obvious point right there. Now he interviews Hanley. Now here's the interview. Here's when he asks Hanley a question. Ramirez blasted a Colin McHugh fastball over the center field fence and afterwards talked about how much better he feels more than a year ago, when he basically played one-handed en route to a disappointing season that still included 23 homers. I know, he only hit 23 homers last year. Oh, man, way so much looser. That's what Hanley says. I don't have to try too much to throw my hands out, Ramirez told reporters in Florida. There's the way everything's going right now is pretty good. The way I feel, we've just got to keep working on it. Train to maintain and stay stronger. For the Red Sox to match the Yankees' firepower, Ramirez must deliver, Tomasi says. 2 years ago, he socked over 30 homers and carried the Red Sox down the stretch with a monster final 6 weeks. Last year, his average dropped over 40 points to 242, and his OPS plummeted from 866 to 750. So that's kind of where we stand with Hanley coming off last year. And so Hanley, I think, is kind of trained to say, be happy, whatever. Tomasi goes on to say that Hanley shouldn't be batting past fourth in the lineup, with JD probably at 3. I mean, if Hanley slips, I think you just move him down the roster. It makes, instead of just keeping him in there like he did last year at the 4 spot, why would you keep him there if he's not producing?
Yeah, I think he will produce with Martinez back now. It's kind of that cushion that David Ortiz lent. If he doesn't produce, yeah, you could see him losing time. You have Mitch Moreland, who you brought in as a security blanket, who is a proven defender and a better defender. I know we were talking off here. I was stunned when you reminded me that Mitch Moreland won the Gold Glove in 2016 in the American League at first base. So if Hanley's bat continues to be a problem, I wouldn't be shocked if you see his time decrease substantially. You put Moreland out there, you have Martinez, who's going to be that big bopper now, and Martinez could really make anybody around him better, right? So Betts' numbers will probably be better. Bradley Jr., who's got pop, could find his way into a 5-hole or something like that. Yeah, even Moreland is a good enough major league hitter where if you stuck him as 4th or 5th behind Martinez, his numbers probably go up a little bit.
Now the thing is, I don't. JD Martinez doesn't seem like this kind of guy. He actually seems like a really go along to get along kind of guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't see him having the same kind of problems of selfishness of, I want to play DH, that Ramirez does. But do you think that's ever going to be a switch? I don't trust Ramirez in the field at all. He proved he can't play left last year. First base, he was mediocre. So I think it's actually appropriate now. I would have said differently last year, but I think now this year you got to keep him at DH all the time. Yeah,
I think it's interesting to see, or it will be interesting to see how they deploy the 3 of Martinez, Moreland, and Ramirez, because Moreland is clearly superior defensively to Ramirez. Ramirez has the higher ceiling offensively. You don't necessarily want to take his bat out of the order unless you have a reason to. But Martinez, where's he going if he's not going to DH? Because your outfield is your superstar
defensive
of the roster.
Crew on the smallest outfield in the league. So that's where I think
the only thing you can do is if Bradley slumps early, then you can maybe make a case of taking Bradley out of the lineup, sliding Betts into center or Benintendi into center, and then fitting Martinez into the outfield on a more regular basis. But in terms of what Bradley brings to you defensively, he'd have to go back to like his first season where he was batting like 189 and where he's literally doing nothing and all of his pop goes.
I was going to say that if Bradley has a slump, he's probably going to be dead. He's that bad now. But
but his defense is so high.
Well, yeah, his defense is great, but again, it's Fenway Park. You can get again. It's not like it's that easily replaceable. But how much did we fawn over Jacoby Ellsbury? When he was here, and then all of a sudden Bradley comes in and it's fine.
And I think the good news for Red Sox fans in that respect is that some people might say, are people who are into the defensive metrics now and what Bradley ranks so high. Mookie Betts is really good.
He's all around.
He could easily slide into center field. Is he going to be as good defensively as Bradley? No, but he's still going to probably be an above average defensive center fielder. So you can. Yeah,
I'd say
it's very easy.
Betts is your all around best player. That's not even close.
Oh yeah, easy.
It's not even close. I mean, he
could literally probably play second base for you.
He can play anywhere
with the issues with Pedroia, and then I guess you put Nunez there. But I mean, Betts is clearly the Red Sox all around best player.
Who's going to be the biggest factor, I guess, like on the field, in the lineup? I don't mean just on the field, offensively, defensively. Who's going to be the biggest factor, based on if they're not playing that day, if they're injured? Is Pedroia the biggest factor? Is obviously Martinez might be the biggest one, but I think it might be actually Betts, like we just said. If Betts is out of the lineup, you're screwed.
Yeah, if Betts is gone, you're in trouble just because of what he does defensively,
and
what he can do offensively to. Not only does he, I mean, obviously he's been your power threat the last like year and a half, but he can just get on base. He can move guys over. He does everything well. He doesn't there's nothing that he is the greatest at, but he does everything well. I also think another guy that you really have to watch for is what the third baseman Devers will be able to do. He's going to be taking over at a full-time role. Now, the issue with him is that if he struggles, you could maybe switch Nunez over to third. But if Pedroia is not back, Nunez has to be at second. Then you're asking Brock Holt to do a lot more.
And that's really, you want to have Holton as like a kind of a patch, patch and go kind of thing, quick fix.
Yeah, you don't want Brock Holt to be your regular everyday guy at any position. If Devers can do in a larger sample size what he did in the small time he was with the big club last year, which was pretty impressive stuff. If he can do that throughout the course of a 162-game season and lock down third base for you and make it so that Nunez is either your second baseman with Pedroia out, or Nunez then becomes your kind of newer, improved version of Brock Holt, a Ben Zobrist type of utility threat everywhere, then you're in business.
How many games did Devers play last year? Was he a starter?
He started towards the end of the year, but I don't think I'd have to look it up. I don't know exactly how many games.
I can't find how many games played he has, but I have the stats from last year. So he has to obviously improve if he's playing. If he's played more than, I'd say, if he played more than like 100 games, he has to definitely improve.
He played 58.
Okay, so there we go. That explains why he had 63 hits, 284 average, and then 10 home runs. But 10 home runs through 60 games isn't that bad though.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. So if you map that out. It says, 58 games played. If you map that out over 162, I think the projections, let's see what he's projected to do. He's projected this year to play 120 games, have 18 homers, 69 RBIs, and a 283 batting average. So if they can get that out of him, that's pretty good.
And he did that, right? So look at this. So here's why I kind of harp on Pedroia also, right? Because I was about to ask you. My next question is Pedroia ultimately replaceable, especially kind of now? He's getting older, and here's the example I'll use. The amount of at bats Devers had last year with those stats, with the 63 hits, 284 average, 10 home runs, he had 222 at bats. Pedroia had almost twice as much with 406 at bats. He obviously played most of the season until he was injured towards the end. Unless do I have that backwards? I think it was towards the end. He got injured, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So he had 406 at bats. He had 119 hits. He finished with a 293 average. That's not bad, but he only had 7 home runs. Again, a tribute to the team that he was on, and 62 RBIs. Not that great of a season to me.
Yeah, and if you add in the fact that most likely with him sidelined or not playing, you have Eduardo Nunez in there, you're probably going to take what Eduardo Nunez can do at this point in his career over what Pedroia can do. I mean, looking at Nunez last year, split time between the Giants and the Red Sox, he combined for a 313 average, 12 homers, 58 RBIs in 467 at bats. How many at bats did Pedroia have?
406.
406. So
twice as much. I mean, essentially twice as much.
So if you combine what you're going to get from potentially Nunez and Devers, you're probably better off than having Pedroia out there.
Well, I think what a trade aspect he would be. If you could probably package Pedroia to get another power hitter. Now, imagine that if you package Pedroia, say with like a draft pick or whatever, to get the league's next the next JD Martinez, not quite JD Martinez, but the next grade below, someone who can provide you power in the 6-7 spot, or at least just a base hit, something life. Sure. Yeah, so if we can get someone like that for a package deal, how good of a trade do you get for Pedroia right now? Because teams would bite on that.
Yeah,
they would bite. You can sell the guy, especially with all the accolades he's had, but you're not going to sell him to me anymore. Or most of the Red Sox fan base, I don't think.
Yeah, I think there's still an allure about him. Obviously, within Red Sox Nation, there is an allure about him out there. So you could get something for him, even if if you don't get like another power bat, maybe you get some solid relief pitching that can help you in the back end of your bullpen, because right now if you're the Red Sox, like, you have Kimbrel obviously, who's a very solid closer, but who do you have that really scares you? Like, you could go out and get a big time reliever as maybe the big part of a deal for Pedroia that can help bolster the back end of that bullpen.
Farrell faced a lot of criticism last year, and especially with situational stuff, especially when it came to pitching. The one thing I don't even know if it's to his credit really. Maybe someone gave the orders above his pay grade. But when they put Price in the bullpen, that kind of worked. And I'm not saying that's going to be a quick fix scenario every time, but I could envision that. Maybe if Erod isn't doing too well, put him in the bullpen, have him be the setup guy for Kimbrel. How dangerous is a starter for that? And you can't. And that's where I can't. And obviously the things I'm in. Is he going to pitch every night from the bullpen? And I can't stand that. If you're throwing 12 pitches, it's not going to ruin your life.
Yeah, and the thing that people have to realize, too, is you can be... I mean, look at now the guys who are field starters, and Andrew Miller, Wade Davis, just to name a couple, guys that couldn't get through the lineup 3-4 times, but if they're charged to get through the lineup once or twice, their 3 pitches that they have play, and they play well.
Yeah.
So you can get by. A lot of guys are doing that now, where they're getting looked at as starters. They can't figure it out, or they have a bumpy beginning of their career. They reinvent themselves in the bullpen. Chad Green for the Yankees is a guy who he's being worked out as a starter potentially to start the year now, but last year he had one of the best seasons in all of baseball from a bullpen perspective. Because why? Because he's a starting pitcher who has a nice fastball. And guess what? Since he's only being asked to go out there and pitch 2 innings as opposed to pitching 6 or 7, he can let the fastball eat. So instead of throwing 94 throughout, or 92 to 94 for 6 innings, he's throwing 97 for 1 inning or 2 innings. And then he's got this curveball that's coming in at like 88 with a nice little bite to it. That makes him a lot more of a threat. So yeah, you could potentially even go out and get... I mean, there's a lot of talk now in baseball and if you talk to like a Brian Kenny, who big on MLB Network, he's all about the bullpenning, which is that same idea of minimizing guys' innings and utilizing more guys during a game, but for shorter spurts and allowing them to be great.
Because how much investment are you wasting anyway? It's kind of like a business choice. You have all this investment in these players that's being wasted every day in the bullpen. How many guys are in that freaking bullpen? I've always wondered that since I was a kid anyway. Obviously you have to have people like Kimbrel who, he's a 9th inning guy, especially when he comes out weirdly last year and says, I can't pitch unless I'm down. Shut up, pitch. Just shut up. But I hope that's becoming a trend because that seems like to make more sense. It just seems so like old and like and useless to have that waste of talent. I would scream at my TV with Farrell last year, like even with people who disagree with my this direct point here, but I think everyone can agree that last year we'd all scream at our TVs when Farrell wouldn't pull somebody or would put like Kimbrel in the 8th inning and keep him in till, or in the 7th inning and keep him in for all 3.
Yeah,
it's like, what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to lose? It's almost like he was trying to lose, but hopefully Cora will be a lot better in that aspect. So
yeah. Well, we'll have to see, but. It's not a bad idea now, and it's something that a lot of teams are doing, looking at guys who can give you short spurts and be dominant, and that's something that is obtainable, I think, with a Pedroia if you were to deal him. A guy who has high upside from a bullpen perspective and can kind of be that. I mean, who's more valuable now, an Aroldis Chapman or Andrew Miller? Probably an Andrew Miller, because he can give you 2, maybe even 3 innings at the drop of a hat.
Well, Chapman's also kind of like the second coming of Papelbon, where it's like, okay, he's going to blow by you with the fastball, and then eventually major league hitters are going to be able to catch on to it. Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Papelbon, by like 2008, 2009, and especially with the Phillies, that that little stare with like the little like kissy lips that he does towards that's great when you're winning games and striking people out. But when you're literally just throwing a fastball and then a split finger fastball that doesn't move and then it's getting crushed to lose playoff games and to lose playoff spots, especially in 2011, then it's not really that cool anymore.
Yeah, it loses its effect quickly.
Yeah, kind of like everything else here. But it's going to be okay because when we go to Fenway Park, it's no longer named Yawkey Way. It's going to be named Jersey Street.
Yeah, they're bringing it back back to its original.
In case people don't know, that's been an ongoing thing ever since that incident with Adam Jones and in the beginning of last year at Fenway Park, where he claimed that he faced racial epithets during the game while he was playing and got things thrown at him. And let me just say that it's clear and it's fact that he got harassed during the game. Whether he got racially harassed is up for debate, and that's not an opinion. That's a fact because he did claim that it happened originally and into the media, but when he was interviewed by police, he left it out of the police report. So that tells anybody who's objective is that he doesn't want to get penned for lying, but also there's a lot of people who believe him, and rightfully so. So that's that's kind of that's led up to the whole changing Yawkey Way to Jersey Street. I personally. I don't know. I don't think it's needed. What's it going to do? Are people who are people in KKK hoodies going to all of a sudden say, oh, well, you know what? It's Jersey Street. It's just we can't do this anymore. Yeah. We can't do it.
I look at it from a perspective. I really didn't know the backstory of Yawkey and everything that went into it, and I know there's obviously like a lot of issues when you really delve into the kind of man he was or all that stuff. But I've always thought of Yawkey Way as like
just Fenway,
just a way to describe like being by Fenway Park. Like I never.
I
don't hear Yawkey Way and think of racism.
I don't hear Yawkey Way and think good or bad of Tom Yawkey. I think I just picture Fenway Park in my head. Same thing with Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Someone who I'm not from New York at all, so when I hear the Bronx, I just think of Yankee Stadium as that's the most relevant thing I can think of there. Yeah. Now, after the Red Sox thing continued, after that whole incident stopped with Adam Jones or was over, it continued on through the season. Obviously you had the team's own issues within each other. That was one thing the Sox were dealing with as an organization. You had also this racism cloud that national networks like ESPN and Daily Spin were all pushing, essentially calling the city of Boston racist, which I don't agree with at all. That's a ridiculous charge. Does it have a checkered past? Absolutely. Is there still racism everywhere? Absolutely. Everywhere, I mean in the world, not just in Boston. And more stories came out from, whether it was the Globe, whether it was surprisingly, which also you can kind of see where they're coming from. They can kind of put a little introspective with the Red Sox owners if they're telling the Globe to do that story. And all these stories kept coming along throughout the year, and that's why they eventually led to this decision. And it's not the biggest deal in the world. I could care less, really. I really could care less if it's named Yawkey Street or not. But the issue, so people just can hear it on shows down the line, whether it's here or anywhere else. People who are supporting Yawkey Way, keeping Yawkey Way, and both sides are right in this argument that Yawkey definitely had some racist qualities, which was not good. Whether he said certain things or not. He was the guy who was in charge of the organization when they were the last person to draft a black player. End of story. That's horrible. Whether he liked black people or not back then, which I believe he didn't, but that's it's his responsibility.
Yeah.
And people who support him also will say, yeah, but he's also done so much for charities. He's done so much for this and that, which is true. There's a Yawkey Foundation. It supports a lot of charities and hospitals. So that's where I think you come with the ethical question of do we have a guy who does really good things and does a lot of great things in his life, who also does has a very bad outlook on life as well, a terrible outlook on life. That's kind of the decision that's being based right here. I don't care. I really don't care.
Yeah,
I think both sides are right.
I think there's issues on both ends. Yeah, it's easy to make a case against him. There's a way to make a case for him. I just think at the end of the day, like, I don't listen. I don't hear when someone tells me, "Hey, I'm on Yawkey Way." Like, I don't instantly think racism. I haven't dealt with racism in my life, so maybe that's one reason why. But like, I don't think, "Hey, the racist guy." I think, "Hey, Fenway Park," like you said. Like when someone says, "Hey, I'm in the Bronx," you think Yankee Stadium. It's just kind of what you think.
Now, something we can't ever say. Also, no, that's what we think. So I do. If you had to ask me, does somebody of color who walks down the street, and sees Yawkey Way and knows what Tom Yawkey was all about, did that bring up bad feelings for them? I can't say that. I'm sure it does. Yeah. I'm sure it does for some people. I'm sure other people of color who see it don't care. They kind of have the same attitude we do. But I don't know. For me, aesthetically and looking at it from an analytical standpoint, I don't know if aesthetically is the right word, but looking from analytically at least, I think everyone can at least agree what's it going to do. It's not going to stop any of the bad.
It doesn't take away what he did. It's not like it's not like Yawkey has a clean slate now because we've taken his name off of the street. He's still the same.
Well, yeah, and it's not going to cure any racism that's already existed anyway. But that's just a little side thought I thought we'd have before we stopped here. But next week we'll just continue more. We're getting closer and closer to the beginning of the season. Celtics, we're going to continue talking about that. Recap kind of what we talked about with Devin Clements last week. Hopefully we can get him on the future again. Maybe another guest to talk about maybe get into more Bruins talk. They're actually doing pretty well for once, but don't hold your breath on it. But it's an
interesting game the other day too with the Bruins. They scored 8 goals, but they also gave up 4.
And they also just picked up Nash too.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's going to be something to develop. I don't think they're going to be going anywhere past the first round. They still can't get past the Maple Leafs or the Canadiens. So, but
only time will tell.
Yeah, we'll do it all next week. Have a good weekend.